Alright, in the last video I stopped at immediately invoked function expression. I didn't know that this thing recorder has stopped, and I continued. So for immediately invoked function expression, they are basically run immediately the browser encounters them. So let's just turn one of these into an ifs. So let me copy it. Basically I have the function that you've written like this. This function takes an argument, so all you need to do is to wrap the function in a set of parentheses. See, parentheses before and after the function. So that's what I have done. And then since you now execute the function, now this function takes two arguments, so I have to pass it through this place. So I have 2, maybe 8. Now this is not going to, when it runs, it's not going to print anything, so it's better we print something to the console to show that something is printed. Copy this. So our area is now going to be area. This recorder is really, so when we run this, see, it prints 16 to the console. So that's how we use ifs. Let me check. All right, that's how we use ifs. So they basically run immediately the browser encounters them. So this immediately invoked function expression. Another thing I want to point out is the issue of scoping. Now let me say I have a function, say basically I have a function called scope me. Just a dummy name. Scope me, and then I define a variable, let scope be 90. Now when I run console.log scope, no, scope, now I want to run scope me. Okay, so I'm having scope me is scope is 90, is printing out 90. Now this function I've defined here, this let, is only accessible within this function. Now if I come outside this function, I want to print scope that I've defined inside the function. Now let's see what happens. See, it's giving us a reference error that scope is not defined, so it's only accessible within this function. I can't access it outside the function. So the point is that variables that are declared with the let keyword is only accessible within a block, and a block is open and close curly braces. So this is the only place we can access the variables defined within a block, so they are local. So that's why we call them local variables. But variables defined, when we define variables outside, say var scope var scope 90. So even though I've defined this variable scope outside, I can easily access it. Got it? This scope is outside, defined outside the function, is still available inside the function. So I can call this scope that is defined outside. So I have 90. Now, one of the reasons why, so if I can as well as change scope, for example, this scope, and change it to 80. Change this scope to 80, so that what I am now printing is now scope within the function 80. So the one of the reasons why let keyword came out, so that let's say for example I have a variable scope 90 and I want a variable scope in the function to be 80, I can as well use let. So this let scope and var scope are not the same thing. So this let is only accessible within this function. So I can use let 80 and maybe change this, and when I'm done, the execution of the code can continue after, to use the scope here that is 90. So let scope is equal to be 80 is only within the function. So when I print is 80, and then outside the function scope is still 90. So I have scope inside, scope in function, scope outside function, so that you know which. So you see scope in function is 80, scope outside function is 80. So that's how scope works. So variables that are declared inside a function are only local to that function. You cannot use it outside of the function. Then that is that about scoping. It's not the best of explanation. I just wrote this off, and it's not the best of explanation, but if you still need more, maybe just let me know on the platform. Maybe I will look for a more meaningful, I'll check through the project I have and look for a more meaningful use case where this really applied to illustrate it. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any question, do let me know in the platform. See you next time.